The plains breathed dust. It rose in slow, curling ghosts from the hooves of cattle and horses, hung in the air like a memory that refused to settle. The late afternoon sun bled orange across the horizon, flattening the world into silhouettes, fence posts, wind-bent grass, and the lone figure riding the ridge above Moore Ranch. Caleb Moore sat tall in the saddle, though his shoulders ached from a day that had started before dawn. 16 years old, already shaped by the land, he rode the way boys did when they'd grown up with reins in their hands and responsibility in their bones. His hat was too big, passed down from his father. His boots were scuffed. His shirt faded from too many washings and too many hard days. Still, there was something steady about him, something watchful. Below him, the ranch spread wide and worn, corrals patched with mismatched boards, a barn leaning just enough to look tired, the house low and plain against the endless sky. It wasn't much, but it was home, and lately it felt like it was slipping through their fingers, grain by grain. Caleb slowed his horse near the fence line. He could hear voices drifting up from the yard, sharp, tense. That wasn't right. Even before he saw them, he felt it in his gut, the way trouble always announced itself before it arrived. 3 horses stood near the gate. Town horses. One belonged to Sheriff Harlan Crow. Caleb's jaw tightened. He nudged his horse forward and dismounted, tying the reins with careful hands. The dust swirled around his boots as he walked toward the house, each step heavier than the last. Sheriff Crow stood near the porch. Tall and broad, his badge catching the light. He had the look of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. Beside him was Eli Benton, a local rancher with sharp eyes and a sharper smile, the kind of man who counted land the way other men counted money. Caleb didn't miss the way Benton's gaze slid over the moor, property like he was already measuring it for himself. And between them stood Caleb's father. Jonah Moore looked older than his years, his face lined deep from sun and worry. One arm hung stiff at his side, wrapped in a dirty bandage from an injury he'd never fully let heal. Still, his eyes were steady, defiant. "What's this about?" Caleb asked, his voice cutting through the air. All 3 men turned. For just a second, something flickered across Jonah's face, relief, quickly buried beneath concern. His eyes locked onto Caleb, sharp and warning. "Caleb," Jonah said. "Go inside." Crow's lips twitched. "Boy's old enough to hear," he said. "Ain't he?" Caleb didn't move. He stood his ground, hands loose at his sides, heart pounding. "Hear what?" Eli Benton stepped forward, boots crunching in the dirt. "A steer went missing last night," he said, smoothly. "My steer. Branded, counted, gone." Caleb frowned. "Cattle wander all the time." "Not across property lines they don't belong to," Benton replied. "Not without help." The meaning settled like lead. Caleb turned to his father. "You didn't." Jonah met his son's eyes, and in that look was everything he didn't say. Pride, fear, a quiet, burning refusal to bow. "I didn't take anything," Jonah said. "You know me better than that, Sheriff." Crow shifted his weight. "I know times are hard, Jonah. I know your ranch ain't what it used to be. Folks do things when they're cornered." Caleb felt heat rise in his chest. "You don't get to—" Jonah lifted his hand slightly. "Just enough." The gesture stopped Caleb cold. "Your head," Jonah said softly, almost under his breath. "It don't—" The words cut off as Crow cleared his throat. "We're bringing you in," the sheriff said, "just to ask some questions." Benton smiled wider. Caleb's world narrowed to the sound of his own breathing. "If you take him," Caleb said, "you take me too." Crow raised an eyebrow. "This don't concern you, son." "It concerns everything," Caleb shot back. "This ranch, my family." Jonah turned sharply. "Caleb, no." But Caleb could already see it. The way Benton's eyes gleamed, the way the town had been leaning away from them for months now. Late payments, quiet talks, doors closing a little too quickly. This wasn't about one steer. It never had been. Grow hesitated, just long enough to make the moment dangerous. "Boy," he said, "you'd best step aside." Caleb didn't. The silence stretched thick as molasses. Finally, Crow sighed. "Jonah Moore," he said, "you're coming with me." When the cuffs snapped closed, the sound echoed across the yard like a gunshot. Caleb watched his father led away, watched Benton mount his horse with satisfaction, watched the dust swallow them whole as they rode toward town. Something inside him cracked. By nightfall, the town was already talking. Word traveled fast across the frontier, faster than truth. By the time Caleb rode into town the next morning, eyes followed him from doorways and windows. Conversations stopped when he passed. A pair of boys he'd grown up with turned their backs like they didn't recognize him. The jail squatted at the center of town, all stone and shadow. Caleb dismounted and stepped inside, the smell of iron and stale air hitting him hard. His father sat behind the bars, hat off, hands resting calmly on his knees. "Pa," Caleb said. Jonah looked up and smiled, small and tired. "Told you to stay out of it." Caleb swallowed. "They can't hold you." "There's no proof." Jonah leaned closer to the bars. "Proof don't always matter," he said quietly. "Not when men like Benton want something bad enough." Caleb's fists clenched. "Then we fight it." Jonah's gaze hardened. "Careful how," he warned. "This town's got a way of turning on its own." Too late, Caleb thought. Outside, a figure waited across the street, a girl standing beside the general store, pretending not to watch him. Her name was Emma Clark, and she'd grown up alongside Caleb, riding fence lines and sharing stolen apples behind the schoolhouse. Lately, their conversations had grown quieter, heavier with things neither of them said. Their eyes met. Emma hesitated, then gave a small nod. Not judgment, not fear, just concern. It was enough to steady him. For now. That night, Caleb stood alone at the edge of the Moore Ranch, stars burning cold above him. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the distant howl of a coyote. He replayed his father's words over and over. "Your head, don't rush, don't react, don't make the wrong choice." But the town had already made theirs, and soon Caleb would have to make his, one that would change everything.